Tapu, assalamu alaikum, namaste, haru nefer. This is Qesankh Ma'akaparu with a special video for my Patreon supporters. In this video, we're going to be dealing with magical ritual secrets. But before I get into that, I would love for you to hit the like button on this video. And I also want to thank you all for being a Patreon supporter. Your support is appreciated and allows me to create further programs like ebooks and things of that nature. So let's get into this exciting subject matter. You may want to take some notes. I want to get into revealing these as secrets, and these are secrets are coming out of the occult rituals and dating all the way back to ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, and the Egyptian mystery schools, and even back further than that. We know that the first people to dive into magical practices were African people, because African people were whole brain people. They thought using both the left and the right hemisphere of the brain, and they were the first ones to really take into consideration and ponder all of the wonders of the metaphysical realm. You see, the Western world is predicated upon left brain thinking. That doesn't mean that they don't use their right brain, they do, but it's mostly polarized in left brain thinking. Therefore, only thing they look at in their so-called institutions, religious institutions, higher learning institutions, is the concrete, the physical. Anything dealing with the metaphysical is very difficult for them. They have difficulty with abstract concepts, which is why God, when you say amen in the Kemetic tradition, we understand that, but they have a problem with that. So they have to create a representation of that, which is the white guy with the beard in the clouds. They have to create a physical representation to conceptualize what God is. And which is why they have a hard time understanding if there is life out there in space. And we know that the universe is billions and billions of years old, that it could be a metaphysical life. It doesn't have to be physical life, but they're always looking for some carbon-based life form. And they're very stuck in that concrete thought process. So we know that magic, the occult, came out of, especially the whole idea of rituals and things of that nature, Africa, where African people were integrated brain thinkers and could conceptualize or could think in terms of the physical and the metaphysical, which is why you'll find in ancient Egypt, you have as above or as above, so below, which is one of the Hermetic laws. So anytime you have this idea of Europe wanting to be the originators of occultism and magic, that's not true, because we know that their thought process is not wired specifically for left and right brain thinking, which is physical and metaphysical thinking. So we know that it had to, the origins of that had to come out of Africa, come out of a people who were indigenous to a warmer climate. A warmer climate means you're more integrated brain thinking or more right brain thinking. A colder climate means you're more left brain thinking. All right. So with that as the stage set, we know that the first witches, priests or priestesses or sages were women, because women are more predominantly right brain. So they could tap into the subconscious realm in a different states to access higher knowledge. They could, for example, tap into deity possession. They could tap into the Akashic records. They could tap into interdimensional beings and interdimensional travel, which we call astral projection. So women were some of the first ones who could make use of this. And we go back to Greek culture, Greek and Roman culture. We know there's the Oracle of Delphi and things of that nature. And many of the oracles in the Greek culture were women. You would go to these women and you would ask a question and they would disseminate the answer in riddles. So let's understand from a scientific perspective where this occult power is coming from, and it's not something that's based on superstition, as you'll see in Hollywood movies and things of that nature. It is based on science. Even quantum quantum mechanics is catching up. You have quantum physicists like Zim Zealand, who did the reality transurfing book, coming out there and talking about, how reality doesn't exist apart from the observer, which is what our ancestors taught all the time, which is, your consciousness and all that you observe is Maya. So let's get this straight and understand and give credit to where credit is due. Our ancestors, who were the ones that first came out with this knowledge, and then not too long thereafter were persecuted and killed. As in George Lucas, who was an insider into the occult practice, tried to reveal this when he told the story of Star Wars and the great empire taking over, and how the empire, one of the first things they did was to kill the Jedis. So one of the first things the ruling elite did was they killed off the sages and priestesses. Then they burned down all the great libraries, like the Library of Alexandria, which contained papyrus and scrolls of occult wisdom, higher science, higher knowledge based on both left and right hemisphere of the brain thinking. So they had to trap the world in left brain thinking, concrete thinking, based on materialism, emotionalism, identification with the ego, the self. And this self contained us, trapped in our bodies, and we began to think that we are the body, and we veer away from the idea we're consciousness. You see, we're gods. But that was all done away with by the Roman Emperor Constantine in 325 AD, when he declared that Jesus was more important than Mary. Hence, the sun cult was more important than the moon cult, because Mary, Isis, or Aset deals with the moon, or the subconscious mind, and that's what we venerated. We were very much subconscious mind practitioners into the occult. So what I want to get down today is to go over some key elements that make a ritual really powerful. Now, when I was starting out in the priesthood and we were doing our rituals, we just had to follow what we were told to do. We set it up this way, in this direction, with on the altar. But no one ever explained to me why it works and the purpose of these things. And when you don't understand that, it's hard to place your belief in something like that will work. So recently, I have been working on a major transformation in my personality and who I am. And every now and then, I'll do this about every 5 years. I'll work on self. Maybe to become more articulate, to become more gregarious, to become more outgoing, more assertive. And there's a process that I go through that, which is basically will transform my personality to that thing I admire. And the other day I was deeply entranced because we had a full moon. And I got console in trance. And the console said, "You've been teaching this reality manifestation stuff, but you're leaving out that which could greatly accelerate the results and your personal results to achieve what you want." And the voice was saying, "It's ritual. Go back to that." And I realized it was right. And I said, well, I'm going to go back to doing rituals. And the reason why I kind of steered away from that and teaching that, because a lot of people don't have time to do a full-blown ritual. They associate a ritual with a particular religious ideology. And I wanted it to be separated from being associated with any particular religion. So I shied away from ritual. But we're going to go back to that in this session here, because it's very powerful in getting the results. When you are performing a ritual, you are what we would say is the magician. And if you see here in the magician card, he has his altar there with the 4 elements: the chalice, he has the pentacles, the sword, the wand. And those represent the 4 elements, and he's pointing upward with the sign of infinity over him. And in various different tarot decks, you'll see different representations of the magician. But know that that's what you are. You see, you're manipulating the 4 elements to conjure up and bring to you your objective of your goal. You possess this knowledge, and this is why we have the high priestess. She represents the hidden, the secret knowledge. And notice that you have the 2 columns, the black and the white, to me representing the 2 states of being, the physical and the metaphysical, the conscious waking state and the subconscious dream state, So you are the magician. And when you're doing your rituals, you start out with an objective or a goal of what you want to have come to fruition. And the ritual is the process of manipulating the metaphysical forces to grant you your wish. And I've gone over, my process for reality manifestation and how I gave you something that I think is expedites the process and is simple. But getting back to the whole idea of rituals, which are much more, well, they're more powerful because when you're looking to manifest something that you know is going to be a challenge, you could do the techniques that I've outlined, and it'll take you a while to get there, but you could do one ritual and suddenly it manifests if you do the ritual correctly. That's the important thing. So we're going to talk about not the process of how a ritual is done, because you can read up on that or watch other videos, but we're going to talk about some key elements within a ritual that you must have if you want success in that ritual. All right, now let's go over those. I took some notes so I could pass them on to you. Always with your ritual, you want to have a physical representation of the deity you're petitioning. If the deity is Haru, if it's Aset, it could be Ma'at. You want to have some type of physical representation because that makes an impression on the subconscious mind. And it also brings you in contact with that particular deity. But that deity has to govern the thing that you're looking for. So if I want love, I have to go to Ma'at or Haru. So there should be some type of representation, whether it be a photograph, a picture, or whatever. If you can get a photograph of Ma'at, artist rendition, to put on that altar. The next thing you want candles. Of course, it has to be the correct candles. Ma'at candles are blue, representing the fire element. And then you want crystals and herbs on that altar. Now, the purpose of these things here, first, so you understand, is that when we're doing our ritual, we are creating an energy force. We're creating, we're transforming the subatomic particles in and around us, and we're galvanizing them to summon that particular energy so we can mold that energy to what we want. So these crystals and these herbs, which correspond to the thing you want, it could be love, it could be money, will create an energy field around you. And that field is subject to manipulation, depending on your vibrational thoughts. And then next, you want to have a mantra, the correct mantra for what you want. Now, some people will get excited and thinking just because they have the right mantra and they recite it, that means automatically their thing could come directly to them. I've seen people use the correct mantra and get nothing. Others use the incorrect mantra and get a lot. It's all about your intention going in and your belief system. You see, the key to a ritual, one of the secret keys to a ritual is state. You need to get into a certain psychic state that aligns with the thing you want. If you can hit that frequency or that vibration, that thing is yours for sure. The trick is hitting that vibrational state. And just because you have the correct mantra and you recite that mantra, which that mantra supposedly the frequency aligns with the thing you want, still doesn't mean you'll get it, because you are biological, well, for all intents and purposes in this discussion, you're a biological creature. And, there's a thing called chronobiology. So you're going to reach that state depending on certain things. It is like walking into a club. They play the lights, the sounds, the music, the colors to get you into a state. And that's important, which is a fun state, an excited state. When you're doing a ritual, you're attempting to get yourself, your psyche, into a state. And that's a psychic state. Now, many people who do rituals and know the secrets of rituals, in order to get into that state, will use mind-altering drugs, to facilitate that, because they know that's the quickest way of getting there and seeing results. And it's true, those drugs if you take them, can get you there quicker. But we don't want to work with those things because it can have a very detrimental effect upon your health if you use them too much, and they can be very, very addictive. So we tend to stay away from that. The next thing we want to do is work with symbols, which are usually sigils. If you pepper your altar with different symbols of the thing you want, that's very important because it makes an impression on the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind understands signs and symbols, and it can act based on those things. Writing out in a sentence what you want doesn't really appeal to the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind, you appeal to it through emotions, through music, through symbols. That has a great impact upon it. All right. There are a couple of tools that we use, and these are the most powerful things that you can bring into your ritual that will expedite the process. One thing is alcohol, and it could serve a couple of purposes. Alcohol can get you into that mind altering state if you drink just the right amount, not too much, not too little, to where you're taken to an alternate state of consciousness, and when you visualize what you want, then it brings it to you quicker. It manifests it quicker because you're in that alternate state of consciousness. The other thing you use alcohol for is in small quantities, because alcohol it gets absorbed in under your tongue and through your bloodstream really quickly, and that is to charge the air and to charge my body. If I have been reciting my mantra and I drink a little bit of alcohol, splish it around in my mouth, that alcohol in my mouth now becomes charged. And if I spray it out of my mouth, it permeates that electromagnetic field I was telling you about around your ritual altar, the energy field. It impregnates it so that it can manifest what you want. Very powerful, very, very powerful. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because in order to create that electromagnetic field, the energy field, we need things like smoke. All right. And that's how we burn our incense, our proper incense. There are incenses for attracting money, attracting love, and you're burning that incense, which creates the smoke. And that smoke creates the energy field. All right. And when you're spraying the alcohol into that smoke or that energy field, combined with the herbs and the crystals on the table, it all amounts to a very, very powerful energy that needs to be molded in the right way. Another tool that you can use that it's of great importance is a magical wand. There are many wands you can purchase online, and a wand should be used periodically with your rituals, because the more you use your wand, you charge it. You charge it every time you do a ritual with your wand. You're charging it till after about a year, 2, 3 years, it becomes very powerful, and all you need to do is pick it up and visualize what you want, and it manifests. So that's how, and I prescribe getting a wand that has copper on it, because copper is a conductor, and have that wand tied with certain crystals, that can bring you what you need. You can have different wands if you want, a wand for love, a wand for money, but you use those wands in the ritual, and you're charging it, and don't let anybody else touch it, so that when you need something, you could bring that wand out, chant your mantra, or meditate with that wand, and it can bring you the very thing you need. Now, when you take the wand and you charge the air particles with the smoke, with the crystals, the herbs, the candles, and you have visualized what you want, and you've sprayed the alcohol into the air, and you waving that wand around, that's very powerful. You're cutting the air, all right, and you're creating a dynamic force of you're crashing into the molecules with the wand, creating that friction, and that's going to help manifest what you want. Okay, so very powerful. So that's when you see, like in Harry Potter, they're waving the wand, but you can do that when you have the energy field. Wave the wand in the energy field while visualizing what you want. All right. What I use prior to all of this, I use magic baths. and that's the water element, the water. And I place those baths on my body, which charges my body, and then I recite the mantra, which further charges my body, while holding the wand, which further charges my body. Yeah, you know what I mean? And then that's when I spit the alcohol. I spray the alcohol out, or it could be water. You can use water if you don't want to do the alcohol. But the alcohol takes you into a quicker state of trance. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. What I tend to do is to get me into the trance state is take that little bit of alcohol and start spinning round and round and round and round. And you may have seen these in movies or documentaries about how the African sages and priests would spin around and around. That's meant to get you dizzy and exhausted to the point of where you snap into the subconscious or right brain trance state, you know, that gets you there really, really quick, you know. And I had something that we can talk a little bit about, which is really the state. There are different levels of states, and we can go over things like the beta, which is the conscious state, fully awake state, which is the 13 to 39 hertz, the alpha state, subconscious state, deeply relaxed, light hypnosis meditation. This is the state you want to get into, the alpha state. And the next state is the theta state, which is 4 to 8 hertz. And this is the super conscious, drowsy, tranquil, your light sleep. This is where you have your shamanic journeys and things of that nature. And you have the delta state, the 5 to 4 hertz. This is the dream state, the deeply unconscious. This is where you can do astral travel and visiting other dimensions. And then also before that, you have the 40 to 80 hertz state, which is the gamma state. This is what we will call a flow state, the super conscious state, highly attentive states and perception, higher mental activity, and the where you can organize various information and things of that nature. So, but again, you're looking in your ritual to get into the alpha and the theta states. And that will help you immensely, you know. Now, I'm not getting into possession or contacting spirits. That's a subject for another thing, but we're merely talking about having an objective, having a goal, and using the ritual to facilitate, to manifest that goal, you know. And the key here are two things: is the visualization, and it's the getting into the alternate state of consciousness, you know. If you leave those two out, then you don't have a ritual, basically, you know what I mean. So it's key that you get into that psychic state. I keep emphasizing it because it is a state, and you visualize what you want. Now, I've said this before, that you could be meditating, and some Buddhist priest and Hindu shaman will chant the mantra thousands and thousands of times in the ritual. That's very powerful if you do that, by the way, while having a visualization. But there's still no guarantee you'll hit that psychic state. You understand? Because there's certain conditions that need to be right. This is why our ancestors said, if you're going to do the ritual, do it on a full moon, because that's when the subconscious mind is open and receptive to impregnation. So you know you'll hit that psychic state easily during the full moon. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's very, very important to know. So I went over some of the very, very important elements that you'll need for your ritual. All right. And throughout this entire process, there's one more key ingredient, which goes back to as above, so below. You need a symbolic representation of the thing that you're going for. Let me give you an example. If you want a certain person to fall in love with you, or you really want this man or woman, excuse me, then you need to create in your ritual a representation of that. This is why you have people like Aleister Crowley would go through elaborate rituals, ceremonial rituals, where he would have cast of characters, mass, use psychedelic drugs, all of these things because he was trying to enact the Hermetic law of as above, so below. And let's, while we're on that, let's just take a quick look at Aleister Crowley, because he's a very interesting individual who took magic to a really, really far level, or I don't even know how to say that. He really dived into it, holding nothing back. So let's just take a look at this real briefly.
The focus is to help practitioners engage in spiritual quests that enable them to break through those restrictions so that he or she can be of one mind with his higher self. Crowley taught that the way to communicate with one's personal demon was to reach higher states of mind, trances that could not be easily achieved. And the best way to reach those special trance states, to be able to converse with one's demon, was through forms of ritual sex magic.
I found my experiences on pure DMT, both of them, utterly terrifying. And if I try to pin down what the terror came from, I'm not absolutely sure what it was. It was the strangeness and the purposive nature of the realm, that I had been put into a space where something was going to be done to me. And I think I wanted out, and at the same time, I couldn't get out. And that, it was almost a feeling of terror and claustrophobia combined with that. I was thrashing around. I wanted out of there, but I couldn't go.
That experience it was different from any other DMT experience that I had. Like, when I smoked it, I felt like I got abducted right at that moment. Like, aliens waited for me to smoke my bowl, and then they abducted me.
The entities you see on DMT, are they real or not? Tall order, very difficult to really unpack that. For one thing, what do you mean by real? Let's start there.
Sure. Again, I don't know. Let's say it's not real. In a Carl Jung way, it's a shared human archetype. What is that programming that you take DMT, that you release a little bit of during deep sleep, during vivid dreams, and a ton of when you die?
When he first left the body and had a near-death experience himself, he went into a realm that was classically the realm of the demons and the what I would call the archons and the reptilian entities and all this stuff. In fact, he talks about seeing reptilian beings brushing against him and all that stuff.
I go through the tunnel, going through a tunnel, and I see a hand, and it stops me. And I see the fingers mutating. It turns into 3 fingers.
Alistair had become very distant. Sadly, as the days passed, he became more and more hostile towards me. Not as violent as he'd been with me in the past. I could tolerate that. But there was no longer any love for his wife and his child. The only thing that mattered to him was I was, his guardian angel. By the end of our journey, I knew I'd eventually leave him.
So basically, just to get back to this, 1 second. So basically, getting back to this, here's a man, Aleister Crowley, who was experimenting with different types of mind-altering drugs. But the one thing that we can learn from him is that he gave up his marriage, neglected his children, because he was so passionate about magic and so passionate about contacting, which he was trying to contact Horus or Heru. And he claimed that on a couple of occasions, or during a trip to Egypt, his wife had taken possession of Heru, and Heru spoke to Aleister Crowley. But I want you just to understand how powerful rituals can be. Now, getting back to what I was saying before, to having a physical representation of what you're going for. So let's say, for example, if you're trying to attract love for a particular individual, what you could do is, during the ritual, take a red bow and tie a knot. Or you can take, for example, 2 dolls, male, one female, and take the red bow around the entire knot. And that is a symbol of the two joining or coming together. Or you can take 2 chalices full of red wine and put them on the altar, which communicates directly to the subconscious mind, a union. And that's what you're trying to do. You're using these symbols to communicate, hey, listen, this is about manifesting love. And the subconscious mind, when it achieves that altered state of consciousness and sees the symbol, or you going through the ritual act, actually communicates that, it activates that power, and it manifests what you are looking for. So keep that in mind, that it's very important. This is why you have, in certain traditions like voodoo, they have the voodoo dolls, because that's a physical representation of as above, so below. So I want you to think about that, how important that is to have that representation. For example, if you're trying to attract a lot of money, you can have a $100 bill on your altar. You can have that just sitting there, and to attract more money and more wealth. And again, it's communicating to the subconscious mind, that psychic state, to bring me money. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to take a quick dive into something that is just as powerful. All right. This is the shortcut techniques I was talking about earlier, if you're looking to manifest something. And this is without the need of an elaborate ritual or an altar and all things of that nature. But this involves sleep, and it's just as powerful if you do it correctly. All right. But the key is, you must have a visualization, and it should be a short visualization that you can repeat over and over again. Again, let's go back to our scenario of me wanting to attract love from a particular woman. I would see her and I on a date, maybe just a quick 5-second clip of her and I at dinner. And I would replay that in my mind over and over again as a visualization. Now, it's important that you take this into sleep. And what you do is, before falling asleep, before going to sleep, while you're lying on your pillow, you replay this over and over again and allow yourself to fall asleep with this visualization. If you take this visualization into your dream state, meaning if you dream about it, there's a good likelihood that this will manifest. Not guaranteed, but there's a good likelihood that it will manifest. Now, there's another way to go about this. That's one technique. Another technique is what I call a sleep deprivation. And what this means is you're staying up for 48, 72 hours without sleep. But during that period, you're visualizing something. And this could be done to make it even more powerful during leading up to 3 days to a full moon. And if you're visualizing this during the practice of sleep deprivation, you're going to get, it's going to seep into the subconscious mind, make an impression. And then when you finally do go to sleep, it's going to be implanted and then it will come to fruition. All right. The other thing is, another technique is you will engage in interrupted sleep. Now, I did this with my alarm, and you can set your alarm to do this, which is when you're about to go to sleep, to have it wake you up periodically after about 15 minutes. I have Alexa, and I set Alexa to wake me up every 15 minutes for the next 4 hours. Now, fall asleep with the visualization, meaning visualize what you want. Make sure it's a short visualization, not long, so that you can loop it, play it over and over and over again. Fall asleep with a visualization. Your alarm will go off, waking you up. Then what you do is become consciously aware of your surroundings, what you're doing. Start the visualization again, and then allow yourself to fall asleep. Then what happens again, 15 minutes later, you'll wake up. And then wash, rinse, and repeat. Repeat the process. Others may recognize this technique where I talked about having an iron ball and like a steel bowl, having the iron ball in your hand over the steel bowl, sitting there meditating and visualizing until you suddenly drift off and fall asleep. Your hands will open, you'll release the ball into the bowl, which will make a clunking noise, and it'll wake you up. And then grab the ball, hold it again, visualize until you drift off again, and then the ball will fall out of your hand, hitting the bowl, waking you up again. You can do that technique, or you can set your alarm to wake you up every 15 minutes. Now, why are you doing this? Well, you're keeping yourself in that in-between state. You're keeping yourself in that alpha state. Because when you go to sleep, then you get deeper into the theta state, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep the visualization within that certain alpha state, because what that does is very powerful. If it stays in that state, then it takes root and it grows from that point on. Now, taking it into, like I said, when you fall asleep, there's no guarantee you'll actually dream about it, but if you do, that's a very, very positive sign. The way you can do this the other way, which I didn't mention, is that if you take the visualization and you lie down and you take it into the dream state and you've dreamt about it, do it again the next night and do it again the next night and keep doing it. And the more you do it, the more it's like watering up a plant. It grows and gets stronger and stronger. But the other way to do that is going back to the interrupted sleep, which is wake up, go back to sleep, wake up, go back to sleep. It's going to, and the total accumulation of what's happening when your sleep gets interrupted so many times is that the body is naturally going to put you into a certain state eventually, because the body knows you're going to keep waking up. Eventually, the body is going to adjust, and it's going to keep you in that certain in-between state. It'll keep you there. And that's the state sometimes people call the lucid dreaming state. Whatever you want to call that state is the best state for manifesting objectives and goals. And if you could keep that state going, it's like clay. You make an impression upon the clay by slowly molding it until it becomes the figure that you want. This is what you're doing by the interrupted sleep. Or if you want to do the challenge, you can do the sleep deprivation, stay awake for 48 to 72 hours. And throughout that time, busy yourself with the visualization. All right. Or just take it, go to sleep with it, and hope that you dream about it and just really embellish it. Those are those 3 techniques. Try them because they're an alternative to doing a full-blown ritual. Again, a ritual is powerful. If I were, like, for example, if I wanted to manifest moving to another state or getting a house, a new luxury car or something, I would do the ritual. But then for other things, a promotion at a job, maybe passing a test, getting administered into a college or getting accepted into a college, I could do the sleep deprivation or the interrupted sleep. It's up to you. The bigger the goal, the more elaborate the ritual will need to be. You know, if you're trying to, if you want to heal somebody who's very, very ill in a hospital, you may want to do a ritual to do that. And you see them healthy, vibrant, you know. So that is just some of the secret techniques to ritual. Try it, apply this, and see the results. Listen, magic is about testing it, working it. Aleister Crowley became one of the best black magicians there is because he practiced it. He just didn't read in theory. And you've got to do this over and over again and find and document what works for you. Let us say, for example, you've tried sleep deprivation and it didn't give you any results, but you tried a ritual and you saw enormous results. Well, stick with the rituals. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have it within me to do elaborate rituals like Aleister Crowley. I just think that's not worth it. You know, that's how my belief system is set up. So if I were to do it, my belief system probably wouldn't allow me to manifest anything from that. But these rituals that I explained to you today and the techniques like interrupted sleep and sleep deprivation, my belief system directly aligns with that. So more than likely, I'll see some positive results from that. So it's up to you. Magic is a very individual type thing. You know, what works for one may not work for another. I mean, there's certain rules and principles that everyone needs to adhere to. I mean, you have to have trance. You have to have the visualization. You know what I mean? You have to create the energy field. But you have freedom within those parameters to experiment and see what is to your liking, what works for you. You know what I mean? So I want you to think about this. The main thing, again, is to put this into practice and see what works for you, and then wash, rinse, and repeat. And remember, the more you do it, the more momentum you build, and the easier it becomes, and you become so powerful as a magician. I want to thank you for becoming a Patreon supporter and tuning in for today. This is Qesankh Ma'akeperu, son of Ma'at Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amun Ra.